EastEnders has announced a new storyline, which fucking serious one, and it's a storyline that involves the pastor and Yolande. Someone chimed in saying when we talked about the hour-long episode in April the 17th, someone said, "Trust Clenshaw, double the length, double the gloom," and fucking hell, boys, this one's gonna be rough.
I want to say my hands are like magic because any character I put to becomes a prick.
So I suppose trigger warning.
Sexual assault being mentioned here, lads. So
Yes.
if you don't want to hear us ramble for about 10 minutes about this storyline and where it could lead, tune off. But if you want to stay, and if we don't treat this correctly, it's like touching thorn bushes, then you can comment below and say, guys, next time don't, tell us
Well,
where we
I
go
have
wrong.
I have no intentions of doing that. So yeah, I'll go through the article and then we can kind of pick apart pieces through it. EastEnders announced his devastating issue-based storyline for Yolande Trueman. The scenes will air in an hour-long special next week. EastEnders will explore the impact of sexual assault storyline with Yolande Trueman. BBC Soap will air an hour-long episode next week, which will see Yolande's friendship with the pastor take a harrowing turn. Special edition, which will air on Wednesday, the April the 17th, will see Pastor Clayton sexually assault Yolande at a fundraiser. The scenes will also include flashback accounts of women who have previously been sexually assaulted by Pastor Clayton, as it becomes clear that this is not his first offence. Viewers have already seen Yolande challenge Pastor Clayton for behaving inappropriately towards her. Yeah, goddamn. I feel like everybody was getting some quite creepy vibes from the pastor, and the methods he went about trying to gaslight Yolande, like, "Oh, how dare you suggest I did anything to make you uncomfortable? I'm actually uncomfortable." Well, now it's more sinister, right?
Yeah, just like the run bit. I hope when they do the flashback, he at least has a mustache to determine that we're in a flashback, not the current way.
No, probably not. Yeah, not the line for this. There is no making light in this situation. There's no funny outcome. We don't need to try and lighten the mood. This is it's a very serious topic, and it needs to be addressed with that degree of seriousness. If there's one thing that this seems remotely similar to, in Hollyoaks, about a year and a half ago, they did a kind of like a historical sexual assault storyline with like a doctor called Mizpah and a a person who was like she was a junior doctor at the time, and she was his assistant, and he took advantage because there was that power balance where he was like the successful doctor, he was the like budding junior doctor, and it kind of ended up being this big like historical thing where she had obviously internalized a lot of this and blanked it all out, and probably one of the like better Hollyoaks storylines that they've done for a good while, because they gave it all the time it needed, and they allowed all of the actors to kind of, like they gave it enough room and time to show the effects and show how something like that could affect someone. I will say soaps do genuinely always seem to get it right with these sorts of storylines. Even if the show's not in a very good place, they do typically know how to make sure that they get it done right. It's not like a random social issue that they've just thrown in there for like fucking 5 minutes because it's interesting. This is they always handle these cases like serious and like genuine intent rather than just like posturing.
I mean, the only time I can recount where they did take it seriously was Grey Atkins, where I was like, oh, the met new storyline, and he's a killer.
Yeah, that one. That's not really the
So like, I have
template.
I have great faith for Chris Clenshaw, but please, whatever you do, do not put your finger in that sticky glue that is that's great actresses.
I will say, there's been a lot of this going on in soap lately. There's been a lot of storylines, kind of like I, I, I'm glad that Yolande's been given this serious storyline to remind everybody how like good a character she can be, but also it's only been what like a year or two since Ben's in elsewhere in soap. You had the Amy Barlow one. Emmerdale seems to do a storyline similar to this every couple of years. Like, oh boy, it's gonna be rough. It is gonna be rough, but at least this still makes me believe that there will be some comeuppance for Dean, because the pastor's not getting away with this, I would hope, and I would hope that likewise Dean will finally get his comeuppance in this story. But let's read on further.
Just a shame. Why did they that photo for him?
Um,
That is creeping me out. That photo.
like any image of the past now creeps me out. So, Yolande, viewers already seen Yolande challenge Pastor Clay behaving inappropriately towards her. Yolande became uncomfortable when the pastor uses his position while they worked together on a charity project, but later forced to apologize for her accusation. As this storyline progresses, Yolande will struggle to come to terms with the assault from a man whom she believed she could trust. Viewers will see how this impacts all aspects of Yolande's life, including relationship with Matt. And now talking about the I guess a cultural impact in a sense of what they've done to make sure they're going to treat this sensitively and accurately. And yeah, EastEnders has worked closely with experts in the field to ensure this story is portrayed as accurately and sensitive as possible. EastEnders executive producer Chris Glentor says, "It's an important story that we hope will raise awareness of how women at any age can be groomed by someone in a position of power. It was vital for us to work alongside End Violence Against Women, Coalition and Hourglass to truthfully present and sensitively portray Yolande's sexual assault story." Director of End Violence Against Women Coalition, Andrea Simon, added, "Proud to work with EastEnders on this important storyline. Sexual assault happens to women of all ages and backgrounds. Many find they aren't believed or taken seriously. Older women, black women, and others who are marginalised are at the sharp end of this, with huge consequences for their access to justice and support. TV shows can play a huge role in shifting attitudes across society. We hope this storyline helps dispel myths and stereotypes about what victims and survivors look like and perpetrators behave, and ultimately increases understanding of sexual assault." Veronica Gray, who is a deputy CEO and director of policy at Hourglass, also said of the storyline, "It's a landmark moment for all older victims of abuse in the UK and beyond. EastEnders shaping a storyline around the too often hidden nightmare of sexual abuse of older people finally brings this issue out of the shadows and into public consciousness. We hope this will start an important conversation in many households across the UK. Hourglass is delighted to work with EastEnders on this storyline to provide advice, and we are impressed by how engaging the scriptwriting teams were and how keen they were to be authentic and respectful. Abuse of older people comes in many forms, and Hourglass urges anyone affected to make contact with us." Yeah, so like I said, EastEnders doing their due diligence. I think it's interesting to see that they will be taking the kind of position of power idea of this, with obviously him being the pastor and Yolande being like a member of the church. Be a good way to play on the dynamic between the two. I was discussing it, I think it was on the last podcast, we were talking about the concept of like power imbalances and how it shapes up in some of these like social situations. So it's going to be interesting to see that that's probably the avenue they're going to take. But I will probably warn everyone that already we've seen when Yolande was simply voicing her concerns, he acted really like horribly and like gaslit her to believe that it was her fault for doing this. Even went as far as trying to like get her to apologize. So it will be a pretty rough time to watch these, as I can only imagine he'll be even more despicable about it as it goes on. So if if those scenes will likely upset you, probably would just recommend trying to avoid this storyline if you're not of the like you don't feel like well enough to tackle it. It's just from the brief things we've seen so far, yeah, it's probably not going to be the most stomachable for some people, and that's perfectly fine. And it, you know, it is okay to skip things. You don't have to be like a fucking. I've watched every single minute of EastEnders possible. If it affects you, perfectly fine to not see it. But there we are. Four. Yeah, it's fucking rough, man. And obviously this storyline kicks well. This storyline, uh, it hits its first major peak on the April 17th, the hour-long edition, and we generally were wondering what was going to happen because it teased that something's going to happen at the fundraiser. Unfortunately, what is going to happen is Yolande sexual assault. So, yeah, it'll be a rough one to watch, but I truly believe that with the actors and the writers and how they've been portraying these issues, I do believe that they'll do a really good job at portraying something so harrowing. And it'll sound a bit wrong, but in a way, it'll be nicer for an older generation to be represented with this. Because, these things often have a case of not really being taken seriously, no matter like who you are or what background you're from. But I mean, statistics suggest that even like more marginalized people from more marginalized backgrounds or minorities as such, even in that instance, don't really get taken as seriously. So, as said, it'll be a rough one, but I believe that they'll do a good job of it. It's just like, fucking hell, lads, you're doing this already. Getting another one of these. But yeah, so it is harrowing, and that is pretty much it. This has been covering the news. Hope everybody has enough warning for this and can get as prepared as they need to be, as it's going to be a pretty rough one. So, yeah, see you.